Welcome to the Orlando Sentinel Editorial Board's interview with the Universal Primary in House District 44, um, which spans an area of South Orange County, reaching from the Dr. Phillips area to Lake Nona and down to the Osceola County line. The seat is currently held by State Rep. Rita Harris, who defeated incumbent Daisy Morales in 2022. This year, Morales is bidding to get that seat back. And as in 2022, the two Democrats are the only candidates in this race. That means all the voters in District 44, including Republicans, Democrats, third-party voters, and those who have not declared a party affiliation, will be once again able to vote in the August 20th primary. There is one more echo of 2022. Ms. Morales was invited to this interview, but we have not heard from her, which leads us to believe that she won't be joining us today. And I have to apologize to everybody. My camera is not working, but I am the opinion editor of the Sentinel Press Booker, and we have Julie Anderson and Jay Reddick from the Sentinel Editorial Board here with us as well. And I'm going to dive in with the first question. Representative Harris, 2 years ago, we led our interview off by asking you to tell us, as a Democrat, what plans you had to work across the aisle in the GOP-dominated legislature and adequately represent this district. Now you have the benefit of hindsight. What were you able to achieve during your first term, and how did you get the GOP sign-off that you needed?
Thank you, Chris. That's such a great question. It is difficult. We are in a super minority situation, which isn't just a regular minority. It means essentially that every member of the Democratic caucus could be absent and bills could still pass the state legislature. One particular item that I was really able to get something done on, and I'm proud to have worked not just across the aisle, but across state agency. We had a explosion in our district because of a warehouse distribution, firework warehouse distribution. And unfortunately, people lost their lives. And what we found when we looked into it was that the statute was very outdated, and there were places that it could be improved. And we were going to file this bill ourselves. We were going to file the bill ourselves. And we reached out to the CFO to talk to their office about some input on their end. And they actually took language and added it to their broader bill. And so that's something, while it's a bill that doesn't have my name on it, I always explain to people, you don't always get the credit, but you're happy to see the product. And I'm happy that some of these standards were put into the broader agency bill. And that is just one example of how we can sometimes work across the aisle to get things done in an environment where it can be sometimes difficult to do that.
Thank you. I wanted to switch gears then to talk about something else that's going to be on the ballot later. If Florida voters authorize legal marijuana and ratify an amendment that protects reproductive rights, how do you anticipate Republicans in the legislature responding, and how should the legislature respond, in your opinion?
That is an excellent question. There are concerns that we're going to see an attempt to water down or dismantle some of that, as we saw with the previous Amendment 4, adding, arbitrary requirements onto, what has been passed. And it's really important that we have people in the state legislature that are going to stand up for the will of the people. It's unfortunate that so many pieces of good legislation, quote unquote, have to be passed through, amendments. But this is a situation we're in where we have a majority-led legislature that won't listen to the people. And so therefore they have to do a lot of work to get these ballot amendments onto the ballot. And when they pass, we should honor that. We should recognize that, and we should try to make sure that they are put in place as robustly as possible. I have a history of supporting access to reproductive health care, so you know that I'm going to be a vigorous champion of ensuring that when Amendment 4 passes, and I do believe it will pass, that we keep it intact as much as we can.
Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you a question about Medicaid and health insurance. About 11% of Floridians lack health insurance, and that's
Mhm.
well above the national average. That is almost entirely due to Florida refusing to expand Medicaid and being one of the few states who has refused to do that. Is it time for Republicans to reconsider their opposition to expansion? And what help can lawmakers offer Floridians who make too much for Medicaid but are shut out of the marketplace?
It is absolutely way beyond time for Florida to expand Medicaid. It is now going on 10 years, and this is not radical. Most other states have expanded and have accepted these federal funds to insure people under Medicaid. Lots of red states too, so it's a bipartisan, action that can be done. We've tried to expand Medicaid in smaller in more defined ways. I filed a bill that would allow people with disabilities to buy in to Medicaid so that they could work and make more money and still keep their benefits. It's absolutely time to expand Medicaid, though, entirely, and help people, because unfortunately we're in a situation where when I have constituents that reach out to me and they're in that loophole, we have to find a lot of nonprofits that can help in that space and that can provide dental health care, vision health care, and holistic health care. And these nonprofits are also struggling to make ends meet and to help as many people as they can. And it's a shame when there's so much money that we're leaving on the table. So absolutely, I'm hoping that Republicans, I heard some of my colleagues last session kind of start using the word Medicaid, and I felt like that was a little bit of that was productive, and hopefully moving forward they'll see that there really is truly a need for it. A lot of Floridians are sick and they need health care.
Thanks for that. In your opinion, are Florida elections trustworthy and secure? And do you believe the state should scale back mail voting and early voting, requiring more voters to cast ballots on election day?
I don't think that we should be scaling back in mail-in voting. I think mail-in voting is exceptionally safe. It was proven in the last election that our election was safe. And I think mail-in voting is a way to increase access to the polls. It helps more voters. And I think the more voters we have, the better our state, the better our country. Our democracy thrives on people having access to the ballot. And so I fully support that. And I've been working during my own campaign. On my walk card is a QR code that would take people to the Orange County elections website where they can sign up to vote by mail. So I've been encouraging everybody and letting them know that they've been taken off of vote by mail and they have to re-sign up after every general election.
Thanks for that. Over the past several years, Florida has seen multiple controversies along the lines of what many describe as culture wars, lawmaking centered on transgender individuals, the removal of books from public schools, and prohibiting discussion of gender identity and sexual orientation in most grades. Do you think these debates have been a productive use of legislative time?
No, absolutely not. And furthermore, it's not even just my opinion that these haven't been a productive use of the legislature's time. It is the community's opinion. I knock a lot of doors. I'm out in my community a lot. And these are not the things that people are concerned about. Overwhelmingly, people are concerned about what we've talked about so far, healthcare. They're concerned about affordability. They are not concerned about, these attempts to distract, the community from what's really going on. And it has not been a productive use of time. And in fact, now we're also seeing impacts of people leaving the state, and we're experiencing a little bit of a drain of resources from teachers to doctors who want to go elsewhere where they don't have to deal with all of these vague bills and trying to navigate this landscape.
Another issue that has some people leaving the state or thinking about leaving the state is Florida's property insurance market, and to a lesser extent, it's a auto insurance market. What's your plan for getting this under control? What should the legislature be looking at?
Yeah, a lot of people have experienced increases, myself included. After the first special session, my property insurance went up 50%, and it has gone up twice since then. So we're all experiencing this. There were 17 bills that were filed in the last session that were bipartisan, actually, and one of them actually co-sponsored by a Republican and also a Democrat, that would answer some of this with weatherization and wind mitigation. I filed a bill that would create an insurance advisory council that would help give some insight and advise the legislature on steps that we could take that could help mitigate some of the rise that we're seeing. Also programs like my Safe Florida Home help to weatherize and hearten older homes to, the impact of storms and try to encourage these insurance companies to insure these homes that they might not feel so comfortable insuring. I think it's a complicated issue, and it's going to take a lot of different ways to attack it, but it won't get dealt with if we don't, start to come together and deal with it in a bipartisan way. And it's a shame that there were so many bills that were filed last session that were not heard. And these were bipartisan efforts. These were Republicans and Democrats that were filing these bills. And hopefully, next session we'll see an attempt to look at some of these bills and say, okay, maybe we should look into how this could impact and how this could help. Because that's the number one thing. It impacts housing affordability, because when insurance goes up on rental properties, it is a tendency to feel it. And it definitely impacts, I have less income every month because of my insurance.
Thank you. Now, very intimately tied to the insurance issue are the challenges that Florida is seeing with regard to climate change. What is achievable, given the current political environment in Florida, to respond to these very great challenges of climate change, seeing as some lawmakers have turned it into a political issue rather than a scientific one? I know that you've talked to me before about effective responses from the Democrats on this, so let us know how you think that should go.
So I am encouraged to see that there has been more talk and more investment in solar energy, and taking some of the solar energy is now being put into our grid. A lot of our power companies are, pulling some of that solar energy to use, especially during slower times when there's not such a demand. And I think that we really need to expand that. And I think that the interest in solar energy is also becoming an interest in the private market, which of course in a state like Florida, that's always going to win over more bipartisan support. So I hope to see more of the investment in solar energy, whether that be, exploring how to make smaller solar cells, whether that be creating solar cells here in the state, which would also help with creating good jobs, and just expanding our access to solar so that more people are getting solar energy. We have an investment from the Infrastructure Reduction Act that's actually going to be putting solar into communities that historically have not been able to afford to put solar onto their homes, but may want to have solar. And so I'm hoping that that is going to help. And I think that we have to keep talking about the climate crisis. We are in a state where we are being impacted by it. Inland flooding in Orlando and communities that normally don't see flooding, record-breaking storms on a regular basis. We have to come to terms with this, and we have to talk about ways that we can navigate out of this. And again, it should not be a political topic. It should just be a topic of what, as people, can we do to come together to help solve this problem.
Thank you. I wanted to jump in with a quick question about local rule. State funding has long been used to support local priorities, whether it be septic to sewer projects, mental health programs, or arts and culture. This year, hundreds of millions in local projects were slashed, and Governor DeSantis' veto of the entire cultural grant budget was at the forefront of that. But with all those local projects, how do you feel that the state should help?
First of all, it's devastating. The arts and culture are so valuable. I am a theater kid. I can tell you that my time spent in theater has helped me way into my adult years as well. And access to art and culture should be something that all children and all people are able to get. So to see that slash, and especially the reasoning behind it, that it is quote unquote woke, or it's just to me ridiculous and honestly petty, and it's punitive. I think that the states can help by trying to to, again, rely on pulling down federal funding, working with our colleagues in Congress. Thankfully, in Orlando, we have two good members of Congress, Congressman Soto and Congressman Frost, who both are dedicated to not just the arts and ensuring that our community has access to arts and culture, but also ensuring that we have access to flood mitigation and water projects. And so they've really been doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that end to kind of, insulate us from what it seems the governor's focus on is these counties that historically have not supported him.
Thank you. I will jump to another topic. Across Florida, we're seeing a steady increase in the number of visibly homeless people in different cities and counties across the state. A law passed in the 2024 session limits the way that local governments can respond to homelessness. Do you agree with this approach, and how else would you attack it?
No, I voted no on that bill. I found it to be not just cruel, but impractical. It requires that counties do certain things, but then does not give the counties the resources that they need to do those things. And so it leaves counties in a situation where they have to create a space for people who are homeless or unhoused, and then they don't have the finances and the resources to do that. I think that there are ways to address this. I think that we have a lot of spaces that are abandoned. We have a lot of malls and places like that unfortunately are just not what they were, that we can create some, transitional housing, some housing that is attainable, some affordable housing. And we have to address the fact that, affordability overall has a lot to do with why families, and that's what I think we're seeing is an increase of families who are unhoused. Children, parents, working parents, and we shouldn't live in a space where people are working, in some cases more than one job, and they're still unable to afford a place to live. And so I think really kind of tackling some of the affordability and creating spaces where, we're building housing, but we're also building housing that's attainable to people, is one of the ways that we have to go about this. But I think also addressing the fact that overall, with the insurance, that creates an even more problem.
Thanks for that. In the coming school year, more than 400,000 students will be receiving one of several public education vouchers, which are often used to pay private school tuition. The Sentinel's own investigation, Schools Without Rules, which has been conducted over several years, found little to no accountability to how private schools spend this voucher money. What do you think Florida can be doing to ensure that schools accepting vouchers provide the high quality education guaranteed in the state constitution?
Yeah, and that was my big concern on the House floor when we heard that bill. My concern was that public funds were being taken and given to schools that were then not required to have the same standards. And I think that we filed many amendments that would have made that bill better by requiring that the educators in those schools were credentialed the same as public school teachers, or that the safety standards were the same, that there were requirements that you had to have an IEP for a student with disabilities. These are all things that are not required right now in these schools. And some of the requests that we had with these amendments was that we wanted to bring parity, we wanted to bring equity, so that the students at these private schools are getting the same education. And I think we really need to continue to fight for that. If public funds are being taken to then be given to students to go to private schools, these private schools should have to have the same standards as a public school. Their teachers should have to have the same education, and their safety standards for their buildings should be the same. And we should also require that they are not allowed to or not able to discriminate against students based on their disability status or their country of origin or their beliefs.
Thank you so much. We have, that pretty much covers the questions that we had for this session. And I just wanted to thank you very much for talking to us. In a minute, I'll let you make a closing pitch. But I did want to let people know the Orlando Sentinel will be making a recommendation in this race. But we don't want you to just go on what we said. There is so much out there, especially from the past legislative sessions. Both candidates have web presences, and you'll be also hearing from our news reporters. To give you a very good idea of what each of these candidates would do if elected. We very much appreciate Representative Harris taking the time to be here, and we do think it is something where when voters are able to hear from representatives and candidates, I think it gives them a lot better idea where those people stand and how good a job they would do in representing the best interests in Tallahassee. So we do urge everybody, every reader who is registered to vote in this district will be able to vote. So don't forget that. And with that, Representative Harris, would you give us your brief summation of why people should choose you?
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I want to thank them for electing me in the first place. It has been such an honor these last 2 years to serve this amazing community. And to be very clear, House District 44 is an amazing community. It's dynamic and it's diverse, both in its residents and its and the economy that we have here, having some of the most concentrated small businesses, and small business requests on SunBiz and things of that nature. I have a history of showing up. I show up not just to these forums, but I show up in the community as often as I can. I do believe that voters and constituents should have access to their elected officials to both, let them know what they're dealing with or what they need help with, and also to let them know how they feel about the job that I'm doing. We have excellent constituent services, and that's one of the most wonderful parts of this job is, having a constituent reach out to you and say thank you, because I've now been able to resolve this issue, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without your office, because I know that we have a unique ability to reach out to these state agencies, and they'll listen to us sometimes a lot more than they'll listen to just a person. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. But our office is always there to provide assistance in any way that we can. And that is something that I really enjoy doing. And it is my favorite part of the job. Up in Tallahassee, I will continue to fight. I work hard. I say I work hard, but I fight harder. We have, some things that are coming up in the next 2 years. And I think hopefully I've shown that I'm willing to fight for people, and I'm going to continue to fight for them. And that means everybody in my district. And I have tried to be a representative for everybody, even those who do not vote for me or will not vote for me. If they need my help, they always know they can reach out, and I'll be there for them. And I appreciate you all as well. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity to address our voters. Thank you.
Thank you so much.